What's up, y'all? It's Sunday morning and I've gotten done my first two Train Life Ed Academy classes already. It's been extremely exciting. It's been challenging in a lot of ways for me to be able to consolidate all the information I have gathered from professors, coaches, other mentors, all my resources I've been researching into, podcasts, and just consolidating all that information in a way that I can actually back up, even an intuitive sense, cultivating an intuitive sense to see what someone may not see in their movement pattern, and just to be able to pick out what to do just because I've cultivated that intuition. How to convey all these pieces to other coaches is definitely a challenge, especially the intuitive part, when you just know something's off and you do X, Y, and Z and you know that corrects it. How do you convey that to where it makes sense? That's definitely been a challenge for me. And so I really appreciate and love the two fellow Academy members right now who've been challenging me to do that. It's gonna make me better. And just as much as you push me to be better, I can provide you more value. And that spills over into all my clients as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. With that being said, I thought I would begin to talk about some bracing work because it came up in the academy, so I thought I'd clarify it even more today. Bracing changes. The way you brace your midline, your trunk, changes depending on the movement you're doing or what your intended purpose for the brace is, okay? So, if you're doing your typical gymnastics movements like push-ups, pull-ups, dips, things of that nature, if it's not loaded, for the most part, you don't have to do a big Valsalva breath, okay? A big Valsalva breath, and then you're holding it, and then you're bracing nice and tight, and then you're moving through. You don't have to, okay? Now, when you're doing your static holds, like in gymnastics, where you're just doing a hollow body hold on the rings, you're in a dead hang position, you're just holding a hollow body, or you're in a dip hold, where you're just holding your dip, top of your dip, with your legs up. You don't need to do a you don't need to do a Valsalva maneuver to hold that position. Now, when you're doing a loaded movement, like your typical powerlifting moves, like back squat, front squat, deadlifts, bench press, things of that nature, that's when those big Valsalva breaths, where you're taking a deep breath, holding nice and tight, and then bracing through all your different cues, it augments the support you have around your trunk and your spine. It helps you lift more weight, because the more stable your trunk is, the more power you can produce through your limbs, your hands and your legs. Now, even with loaded movements though, there are exceptions. There are exceptions even in a loaded movement. Things like strongman training, where you're having to move a weight for a long period of time as you're having to walk with the weight, like a keg carry, or like a farmer's walk. The bracing changes there too. You don't necessarily just take one big Valsalva breath and hold it all the way. You may have to take your breath in and out, deep diaphragmatic breaths, but keep a strong brace the entire time. So again, it changes, and I can't give you a simple answer where it's just, you can do Valsalvas for everything. Big Valsalva breath and then brace everything together, and then hold your breath all the way through. It's not the answer for everything. So let's kind of back up and talk about the different kinds of bracing. Now, at minimum, no matter what kind of bracing you're doing, this is always key. And this is something that I implore and invite all of you to begin to train all the time as much as possible. Especially in our day and age where we're having to sit all the time on our ass and be on a computer and do things of that nature. Unless you get pretty obsessive about it and you begin to squat at your desk or use your ball, like an exercise ball to squat on, then it's a different story. But especially in our day and age, it's a good thing to practice as much as you can. But especially in regards to movement, no matter what you're doing, even when you're holding a barbell in front of you or you're about to go into a handstand, just getting that piece on where you're connecting your Kegel is huge. Or before you're about to do a bodybuilding movement like a curl or a shoulder fly, or before you're about to start doing push-ups or crawls, whatever it may be, just get the Kegel on. And there's so many ways to cue this. You can use the cue of take your butthole, take your butthole, right? This is my horrible drawings, but as long as the point gets across, that's what's important. So you can take your rectum who's underneath said person, right? Your rectum's underneath this person. Pull it up to your belly button. That's one cue. Another cue that I like that one of our academy members have mentioned is pull up the boys, so to speak, right? Or take your junk and pull it up into your stomach. Take the ladies, pull that up into your stomach. And most ladies, if they understand the cue of how to Kegel, most of them kind of explain it like when you're holding your pee, that's another way to Kegel. Or even for guys, when you're able to hold your pee, that's another way to Kegel. But to take it a step further, take that holding the pee sensation and draw it up to your belly button. So I want the sensation to be here, okay? Up in this abdominal region. That's really important. So that's key, that's number one, is get the pelvic floor. No matter what you're doing, train this as much as possible. And beyond that, one should be able to turn on the pelvic floor and breathe and take huge, deep, diaphragmatic breaths while they have their Kegel turned on. So they should technically be able to get it on, boom, it's on right here. And then begin to practice breathing. To that belly while they have that Kegel connection turned on. That's huge. Okay? No matter what you're doing, that should be something you should be able to do. Okay? Then you have other cues that you can play with. After you get the pelvic floor on, you learn how to breathe with diaphragmatic breaths. The second piece is getting your obliques to come through and getting your upper abs to come through. So in yoga they call these different locks. This is like the root lock, this is kind of a different lock, I'm not sure what they call it. And then you have this upper lock that's close to the thoracic area, thoracic spine lock, the upper abs. Now, what's important about these locks is that the more and more you practice just the pelvic floor being on, and you being able to breathe, diaphragmatically breathing while you have this turned on, you begin to learn there's going to be more layers of activation that you can get. So if you want to step it up and refine this to a deeper level, you want to take your bracing to the next level and be able to produce more force, be more efficient and safe in terms of stabilizing your spine, you can take it a step further and incorporate your obliques. And the best way to incorporate your obliques is take both fingers, take your thumbs for example, place it on the sides here of your obliques, and then try to pull your thumbs together. Try to pull your thumbs together with your obliques, okay? What should happen is that you feel this wrapping sensation. So a good quick drawing here is that if your obliques are here, right? All these dots represent your obliques. You're trying to pull them together. Okay, so it's creating this kind of like, it's creating like a belt sensation where the belt is just kind of squeezing everything nice and solid. Okay, so that's what you're trying to accomplish here. And then your upper abs, the upper ab lock is just getting right underneath the ribs here. Okay, and just taking your fingers, you can take your index or your thumb, doesn't matter. And I want you to basically pull the thumbs or pull the fingers back into your mid-back, okay? You're pulling them back into your mid-back. And that doesn't mean that you pull and then you sacrifice that nice upright position you created with the pelvic floor activation, your Kegel. You keep that. Keep that on the entire time and then pull the upper abs in, okay? So this form of bracing is a little more advanced. You don't have to get it off the bat. But once you get used to learning how to engage your pelvic floor and breathe here, and you become really good at it, especially in regards to incorporating it in most all movements, every movement for the most part, then I would start to layer in these cues as well as part of the equation. Now you can go pelvic floor, boom, obliques, and upper abs, and then learn how to breathe here. Okay? That's huge. Now, the order in which you sequence all these cues is also dependent on the movement that you're doing. Okay? So say, for example, that you've just done this piece. You've gotten the pelvic floor on, boom. okay? And you're about to do a barbell back squat. Okay, so you get underneath, get the bar on your back, right here. You set, ready to go. First piece, pelvic floor, you're pulling up already. That should be something you're constantly training in your back squat. Even when you get tired and you begin to default to using your accessory muscles to breathe, which is worst case scenario, but it happens. When you're doing high volume sets, it begins to happen. You begin to use your neck, your trap, your scalenes, sternocleidomastoids, your chest region to begin to breathe. And when that happens, you detract from the abdominal brace because now the energy is going here, right? So even when you are beginning to lose your diaphragmatic breath, you should still be able to keep your pelvic floor on. That's why it's so important to still train this in movements where you're just learning how to brace. Like a pure movement where you're specifically just learning how to brace properly would be a dead bug. A dead bug where you're just laying on the ground and doing a very simple movement like moving your legs away from your trunk or moving your hands away from your trunk and being able to stabilize your trunk using this cue and breathing appropriately throughout the entire movement. As you move your arms and legs, you just never lose this sensation. You keep that stabilization on the entire time, so you're conditioning the pelvic floor to turn on. And this needs to be on to a great degree when you're doing crazy big loaded movements. So it's so important to be able to keep this on regardless of whether you're doing a Valsalva breath or not. Okay, so anyway, you're doing a compound movement, right? You got your pelvic floor on, bam, got it turned on. You take your deep breath. You fill up as much air throughout your diaphragm as possible. Now, if you haven't watched the video again of how to breathe in every compound movement, make sure you check that video out. I have it down below. But you're breathing, deep breath, you're inflating air into your belly button, you're inflating air into your obliques, you're inflating air into your upper abs. That sounds familiar, right? Because those are the braces you were trying to create as well. As you layer these, as you begin to get more and more refined and optimize your bracing, you're actually breathing into those same spots that you're engaging as well. So anyway, you breathe, take a deep breath, then you're holding your breath, keeping the pelvic floor on, and then you go through your movement. So you're holding your breath the entire time throughout the entire back squat. As you descend and as you come back up, at the top you let your air out, but you still keep this turn on. No matter what, it's still engaging. That's huge. You don't want 500 pounds on your back and then you're not bracing and you're completely relying on your spine, your ligamentous system, your tendons. You have no support from your deep core fibers. So this needs to be turned on constantly. That is again why it's really important to train positions like hollow body, like dead bugs, like RKC planks, like slider body saws. These things train this brace constantly and for a long period of time. They're conditioning the brace. That's so important. Regardless of the Valsalva breath, you're still training this. I can't emphasize how important that is. Now again, if you're doing a front squat or back squat, deadlift, and you get tired, you have to still be able to rely on this when your breath is not as effective and you can't take that deep enough breath. So important. Okay, now moving on. If you are doing a gymnastics movement, like a ring pull-up, okay, or you're doing an inverted hang where you're hanging upside down on it, again, it's important to be able to do this and just breathe through your diaphragm in and out. And you're filling up air specifically throughout your belly button, your obliques, and your upper abs. You're inflating air in those 3 points. Belly button, obliques, upper abs. Okay, the entire time this is on and you're inflating air into those 3 points. Very important, at minimum. And then as you get used to this, you get very strong at doing this, begin to implement these braces as well. So I have my pelvic floor on, my obliques on, and my upper abs on, and then I'm breathing in my ring pull-up. Now I can time my breath appropriately as I'm pulling on the effort. I'm exhaling as I'm coming down. I'm inhaling. Okay? So you can time it as such, but this is always remaining on. Pelvic floor is always the key thing that remains on. This is kind of a step up, or if you're refining and getting your bracing to the next level. Now the same thing applies when you're thinking about a loaded Olympic lift or a back squat or deadlift. If you're doing your movement and you want to step up your bracing, pelvic floor is on first, right? Big breath, fill up air into those 3 points, inflating into your belly button, your obliques, and your upper abs. And then after you inflate air, after you get your pelvic floor on, then you lock these next 2 braces in and hold your breath. So you're here, pelvic floor, big breath. As you're about to hold your breath, you're gonna get your obliques, pull your thumbs in together, nice and tight. Upper abs, pull that in nice and tight. And you're bracing and locking the air in, essentially, with these 2 braces. The pelvic floor, big breath. In this nice compressed system, you're compressing it even more with the obliques and the upper abs. Nice and solid the entire time. And then you're going throughout your movement. Again, these are refining your brace. That's all that they do. They augment your brace even more to the next level. Whether you are in a gymnastics movement or you are in a compound lift. Now, even when you're in a compound lift, I'm going to definitely harp on this. When you're in a compound lift, even like a snatch or a clean and jerk, and you happen to pause at the bottom because you're trying to get your balance, more often than not, some people have to be able to just train the bottom position and be able to breathe there. And so you have to be able to keep these pieces on and just breathe there diaphragmatically before you have to come up again. And when you're ready to come up, yeah, sure, take another deep diaphragmatic breath, lock in those pieces, boom, 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 and then come back up. Hold your breath to come back up, that's totally fine. But there are points of the movement where you may have to pause, or if you're training a pause rep in a squat, where you're at the bottom of your squat, you're pausing for 3 or 4 seconds. It may be more resourceful to be able to breathe down there, take deep diaphragmatic breaths, and keep these braces on, rather than just holding your breath for 4 seconds, or even more, because say you're working the eccentric of a squat, and you go 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 7 seconds of holding your breath, and then coming back up. And at that point, you're more prone to passing the F out, right? So it becomes important to be able to stay braced independent of your Valsalva as well. If you become too hyper-focused on just being able to take the deep breath and that's it, then you lose the capacity to be braced without it too. When you get tired, when you're not able to keep that on the entire time, when you begin to default to your accessory breathing muscles because you haven't worked possibly on training that diaphragmatic breath as well, or you have a lifestyle that is conducive towards this position, which trains shallow breathing. So when you come into the gym, if you don't spend enough time releasing all this stuff and practicing your breathing, of course you're going to default immediately back to these muscles to breathe. The same goes with any upper body movement you do, whether it's an overhead press or a push or a pull. Most people are prone, especially with upper body movements, to breathe with these accessory muscles, because they're using muscles that are surrounding these areas. So of course you're going to begin to tighten up and then start to breathe through here, unless you specifically train and condition, boom, 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 being able to keep this on and then be able to diaphragmatically breathe there, okay? That's so, so important. And then you may be in a strongman lift, like you're doing like a farmer's walk for like 50 yards or 70 yards, whatever it may be. And when you're doing a farmer's walk, you're not going to just be holding your breath for 70 yards with like 100 pounds on each hand, right? You have to be able to, again, stay braced, at minimum with the pelvic floor. And then I would recommend refining your brace by adding in the obliques and the upper abs, and then being able to breathe there, in and out, rhythmically and consistently throughout your entire farmer's walk. The same goes with the keg carry. If you're carrying a keg for an odd amount of yards or whatever distance you choose to do, you have to be able to do the same thing. Be able to keep your braces on and diaphragmatically breathe in and out the entire time throughout the entire movement. Okay? So that is why it's so important to be able to train both aspects of bracing. Bracing purely with just these on, and then being able to breathe in and out rhythmically, or you can time it with the negative phase of the movement where you're inhaling and the concentric where you're pushing, the effort phase, and the augmentation with the Valsalva breath when you're doing a big compound lift that requires a lot of weight to be lifted from point A to point B. They're both very important. They both are very, very important. I'm gonna emphasize that again. They both apply for different situations, okay? And sometimes they apply all within one movement, like a compound movement. If you're having to pause at the bottom, or you're about to come up, or you already have come up from your clean, and you're ready to jerk, but you need to pause for a second, gather yourself, take a few deep breaths, but you have to stay braced. You have to stay braced with these braces on. Compose myself, take another big Valsalva, engage really tight, so brace again, take my Valsalva, and then go into my jerk right after. But they're movements again within, they're positions within a compound movement where you may not be holding your breath the entire time. And that's why this needs to be able to be trained regardless, independent of the Valsalva as well. Okay? Hopefully this is all making sense. In conclusion, in short, basically, this brace is minimum, needs to be trained no matter what. Pelvic floor, pulling the boys up, pulling your rectum up to your stomach, pulling your, or stopping your pee midway and then pulling that up to your stomach. And then refining your brace with the obliques and the upper abs, and then being able to breathe in and out diaphragmatically is at minimum. You should be able to do that. Practice that as much as you can. And then the augmentation with the Valsalva can be used on big compound lifts where you're lifting heavy weight. But again, when you default into faulty breathing patterns because you're tired, this system you've been training over and over is going to be there to save you. Or if you're doing a movement that requires endurance but it's loaded, you have to be able to breathe in and out, back and forth with your diaphragmatic breath and not just hold it for 60, 70 yards. Or if you're doing a gymnastics movement or a handstand, again, these braces stay on, but you have to be able to breathe in and out. It just depends on the movement and the condition that you're trying to train. Okay, so hopefully this all makes sense. I'm going to begin to apply these different braces and different movements and show you how they differ. So there's much more to come. Definitely like this up if you enjoyed the video. If you have questions, please comment on this video. Talk to you soon, guys. Peace.